NATO's nuclear planning group are meeting today, this ahead of nuclear exercises which are scheduled for next week. The exercises come after Moscow said it would use all means necessary to defend its territory, including areas of Ukraine it recently annexed. For more, we can go across to France 24's Dave Keating standing by in Brussels. Dave, good afternoon. What's coming out of the summit?
Yeah, Delano, we're now on the second day of this NATO summit, and yesterday we saw the big focus was on Russia's escalation of this war and its targeting of civilians and civilian infrastructure in Ukraine in retaliation for the apparent bombing of the Crimea Bridge by Ukraine. Of course, Ukraine has not admitted responsibility for that. We saw very strong condemnation coming from the defense ministers yesterday. Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense for the United States, reminded Russia that targeting civilians is a war crime. Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that these acts were deplorable. So this is kind of a meeting of minds here to try to figure out what's next in the Ukraine war. And of course, the big focus now is on air protection because those attacks on civilians have come through missile strikes. They've come from the air. So this meeting will go on today. We're expecting a press conference at 4:30 today here, Brussels time. What's interesting is at the same time, we're going to be having a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Kazakhstan, where they will be discussing possible off-ramps for Russia in this war, possible routes to peace. It'll be interesting to see how the dynamics of that meeting and this press conference are happening because at the press conference, Stoltenberg may want to hold back a little bit to give room for these possible avenues for peace to be explored over in Kazakhstan. We'll see if we get a statement about that meeting. I think talks are not incredibly high, hopes are not incredibly high that Turkey is going to be able to be a mediator in this crisis and successfully end the war, but that could be a surprise outcome of today's talks in Kazakhstan.
I mean, Turkey helped mediate that grain deal, so fingers crossed for that. On that, I want to talk about something you touched upon because earlier today we had Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky who said the country only had some 10% of the air defenses it needs. Are we expecting to get more pledges coming out of that NATO meeting today?
Yeah, we already got a number of pledges yesterday. French President Emmanuel Macron announced that France will be sending radar systems and missiles to Ukraine. Germany actually delivered a number of air defense system equipment to Ukraine yesterday. We had an announcement from Mark Milley, the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, that the U.S. will be delivering air defense equipment. We don't have specifics on that yet, but he did say that the equipment that they're delivering will not protect the whole country. So it won't be like the Iron Dome in Israel, for instance. He said the equipment that the U.S. will deliver will be targeted for the specific vulnerable areas in Ukraine. That is perhaps not the full system that Ukraine wanted, but again, we're waiting for specifics on that. We also got a short statement from the UK government this morning saying that they too will be delivering extra air defense, but again, we don't have details on that. We're waiting possibly today after that press conference when this meeting of defense ministers end. I think we'll get some more announcements, particularly from London and Washington, on what they're delivering. We did have the Netherlands pledge $14 million in missiles going to Ukraine. So we've had a number of pledges, and I think the pledges are going to keep rolling in today. The question is, what can Ukraine handle? What's best suited for Ukraine? Because if they deliver systems that are very complicated, they have to be operated by Ukrainians, obviously. They can't be operated by NATO forces, or else it risks bringing NATO and Russia into direct conflict. But these are very complicated systems that usually require months of training. So they have to balance giving them air system defenses that are good, that work well, but also aren't so complicated that the Ukrainians wouldn't be able to operate them quickly.
Dave, thank you very much for that. Dave Keating reporting there for us from Brussels.